Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here for Wednesday, January 1st, 2020. Before we get into today's play, that I had a quick recap of what happened yesterday. We ended up picking up a loss in hockey with the Montreal Canadiens and the Carolina Hurricanes over 6, which was available at minus 115 on DraftKings. Went a bit against the grain there, took something in hockey, which I don't do that often, but the number we got was very good. I knew it was going to go to 6.5. It did. We got a 115. To make matters worse, you had 2 goals in the first 4 minutes of the game, and then you had 2 goals the rest of the way in over 2 and 3/4 periods or so. It was kind of frustrating, but it is what it is. We ended up picking up a loss there, but the value was there, and that was the main reason why we took it. Fortunately, it didn't work out, but for today, there are a couple of college football games on. 2 already started between Minnesota and Auburn, as well as Alabama and Michigan. Wasn't interested in those. You also have the Wisconsin and Oregon game. I hope my Badgers can come through, but we'll see what happens there. I thought that game was pretty even. Then you also have the late game between Georgia and Baylor. Didn't really have any thoughts on that one either. So for that reason, not really much to talk about on today's card from what I like. So for that reason, we'll be giving out a look-ahead line for one of the NFL matchups coming up this weekend in the wild card weekend, and we like a matchup between the New Orleans Saints and the Minnesota Vikings, and we will take the New Orleans Saints minus 7.5, which is available on Fox Bet at minus 110. Now, the main reasons why we like the Saints here in the spot is, well, 2 of them are pretty straightforward, and it's kind of common sense, and the other 2 we'll go into. But the main reasons why, first of all, New Orleans has been absolutely fantastic lately. I know that they're 13-3 and they're still playing in the wild card weekend, which is kind of just ridiculous considering the fact that they're just significantly better than Green Bay. But either or, the Saints have been rolling. They've won each of their last 3 games by double digits. Minnesota enters this game on a 2-game losing streak, albeit they didn't start any of the real starters against the Bears in the last game. But against Green Bay at home on Monday night, they looked absolutely abysmal. And we think New Orleans should be able to take care of business in the Superdome. People have been talking about some potential revenge factor from the Minneapolis Miracle. I don't know about all that. I definitely think New Orleans is going to be poised to try to make a serious run after potentially getting screwed over in back-to-back years, from the miraculous play against the Minnesota to the passing interference penalty against, that should have been called against the Rams. Either or, I just think New Orleans is going to be very focused for this game, and they should be able to come out and just lay the smackdown on Minnesota, who's come into this game playing extremely poorly. And I just think New Orleans is, in my opinion, I think they're the best team in the NFC. I think that as of right now, I know that San Francisco is the 1 seed. I think Green Bay is just a completely fraudulent team. I think they're terrible. And I think that New Orleans, as of right now, is playing the best football of any team in the entire NFC. And Minnesota, I know that they're pretty good overall, 10-6. They're 4-4 on the road this season, so they really have not been that great compared to their 6-2 home record. So they've definitely been better at home than they have been on the road. New Orleans, though, is 6-2 in the Superdome. They've been great as normal, and I think that in a playoff game in that atmosphere, I think that Kirk Cousins and the rest of the Vikings will shrink a little bit in the environment, and I think the Saints will win this game going away. It is worth mentioning for the Vikings, though, that Dalvin Cook has announced that he is pretty much at 100%, so he will return to the lineup. However, I really just don't think that's that big of a deal. People talk about how running backs are expendable in today's NFL. You have a couple of exceptions there, but Dalvin Cook's been great all year. He's on my fantasy team, so I would know. But Minnesota, with all the backups still in the game, they still used Mike Boone last week, who had 17 carries for 148 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Chicago is still using their starters, so even though Dalvin Cook is a game breaker, has the ability to break big runs, Mike Boone still at 148 yards in the last game. I really don't think Dalvin Cook brings any real value to a point spread. I think he's a solid player. He's got some turnover and health issues that have plagued him over his career. But at the end of the day, I just think Minnesota's secondary is too weak to actually cover Thomas and some of these other weapons for New Orleans, especially with the emergence of Jared Cook in the middle of the season. But if you have looked at Minnesota's numbers, really just not that great defensively. I know that people tend to think the NFC North is a very, physical brand of football, and defensively they're usually very good, and that they are. But Minnesota this season really just hasn't been that great in terms of guarding the pass, and I think that New Orleans should be able to get the job done by, just throwing it to Thomas repeatedly. I think he'll do well. Saints have also started to use Kamara more in the running game, which I think will pay serious dividends, as he has been just a very solid running back whenever he actually gets the ball in his hands. It's been pretty infrequent over the course of the season, but if you've actually looked at the last couple of weeks, he has been very solid, and I think that he should continue to play well, especially at home, so that it is something that is worth keeping in mind. But overall, I just think the Saints are the better overall team. I think there's a reason why they're favored by this much. They've already been bet up to 8 in some spots, but they're still available at 7.5 on Fox Bet, and that's why we're going to be giving that line out. Just overall, New Orleans is the better team. I mean, if you want to bet on Kirk Cousins again in a primetime game, or I know it's not a Monday night game, which he's 0 for on, but he also hasn't won a playoff game in his career. So if you really want to back Kirk Cousins against Drew Brees, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you want to do that, go nuts. If you think this game will be within a touchdown, you can easily bet that. But this line is more likely to go up than it won't. So for that reason, the play of the day for Wednesday, January 1st, will be on the New Orleans Saints -7.5, which is available on Fox Bet at -110. Other than that, Happy New Year's to all of you. Hopefully you either got over your hangover last night or you're about to have a good time today. Either or, I look forward to providing you with betting content in the future, and hopefully we can turn 2020 into another profitable year. That's going to do it with the installment of Scott Selections, though, here for January 1st, and good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.